I thought I knew my wife. That night, she humiliated me in front of everyone, introducing me as the wrong husband. But what she didn't know was, her secret chats were about to be read aloud. And karma? It had already taken its seat at the table. If you've ever been betrayed, hit like and stay till the end. You won't believe how this turned around. I had always thought I knew my life, my choices, and the person I married. I believed I had everything mapped out, the kind of life people envy, the kind of love most dream about. But life has a way of twisting in the quietest, most unexpected moments. I still remember that night like it was etched in fire, every detail sharpened in my memory, every whisper lingering in my ears. She introduced me as the wrong husband, just like that, in front of everyone. My stomach sank before my brain could even register what was happening. The shock didn't leave room for anger, not immediately. It was disbelief, raw and cold, crawling over my skin like ice water. The wedding hall was dazzling, shimmering with chandeliers and floral arrangements, laughter bouncing off polished walls. Guests were swirling in their finest attire, champagne glasses catching the warm light. I should have felt proud, happy even, but instead I felt invisible. I felt mocked. I looked at Leora, and something in her smile didn't match the warmth of the room. It was sharp, calculating, like she had rehearsed this humiliation for some twisted pleasure. My hands tightened into fists, a trembling mix of rage and hurt coursing through my veins. How could someone you trust, love, and share your every secret with betray you so effortlessly, so publicly? Every laugh around me sounded sharper, every whisper heavier. I could feel the weight of judgment pressing against my chest, even from people who didn't understand the situation yet. I tried to smile, to steady myself, but it was like smiling with a knife pressed against your ribs. My mind raced. Was this a mistake? A cruel joke? Test I didn't sign up for. But deep down, a voice whispered the truth I didn't want to admit. She had planned this. She wanted me to look small, insignificant, while she played the part of the charming, untouchable wife. Even as I forced myself to breathe, to act like nothing had happened, I noticed the subtle details, the way she flicked her gaze toward a corner, the way her hands trembled just slightly when she picked up her glass. Something wasn't right. I had always trusted her instincts, her judgment. But tonight, her instincts had been weaponized against me. While everyone else saw a glamorous, perfect moment, I felt every crack in that perfection like a personal betrayal. That night, I realized trust could be a cage, and sometimes the person holding the key is the one you love the most. And yet, amid the humiliation, something began to stir inside me, not anger, not hatred. Not just yet. It was clarity. It's the kind that sharpens like a blade, steady and cold. I would not stay broken. I would not let this moment define me. Karma had a place in this world. It was already starting to move, and I was learning how to let it work in my favor. I should have known something was wrong the moment she smiled at me that evening. There was a flicker in her eyes, something rehearsed, a glint I had never noticed before. The room was full of laughter, champagne flowing freely, people exchanging pleasantries. But when it was my turn, when I finally stepped forward to greet the guests as her husband, the words that left her lips hit me like a punch I didn't see coming. "This is, my friend, the wrong man," she said casually, as if she were introducing a stranger at a gallery opening, not the man who had shared her mornings, nights, dreams, and failures. Time froze. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. My vision tunneled, narrowing down to her smirk, the cruel precision of it. My lips wanted to form words, to protest, to scream, to demand respect, but the room's hum swallowed me. The guests shifted uncomfortably, whispers spreading like wildfire. I could feel the judgment, the mockery, and the disbelief piercing through me, layering humiliation over humiliation. I don't know how I stayed standing. I really don't. My hands curled into fists beneath the tablecloth, shaking so violently I feared they might betray the storm inside me. Every fiber of my being screamed, "This is not who you are. You are not the man she is making you out to be." And yet I forced myself to stay calm. Not out of fear, not out of submission, but because the fire that began in my chest was transforming into something else. Something sharper, something colder. I caught her gaze fully this time, and it was different. She wasn't hiding anything now. Her laughter, that delicate, rehearsed melody, was no longer just a sound, it was a weapon. Every word, every gesture, was meticulously aimed to wound, to humiliate, to assert control. And in that moment, I understood something crucial. This wasn't just a slip, a joke, or an accident. This was calculated. This was betrayal in its purest, most exquisite form. But betrayal, I realized, is a gift if you know how to use it. The anger in my chest didn't consume me. It sharpened me. Every nerve screamed for confrontation, for exposure, for revenge. But patience, I reminded myself. Let the chaos settle. Let the whispers die down. The truth I knew would speak louder than her lies. And when it did, she would wish she had never learned the taste of triumph. Because karma never forgets. Even as the room continued its gentle buzz of polite chatter, my mind was already plotting. The betrayal might have been hers, but the ending I promised myself would be mine. Even after the humiliation, I tried to convince myself it was a one-time lapse, an embarrassing mistake. But something in the air didn't feel right, and that instinct, the one I had always trusted, refused to let me ignore it. I noticed the subtle details that didn't add up, the way her phone buzzed just a little too often. The half-smile she hid when I glanced at her, the secretive whispers into the screen. My stomach twisted, a slow-growing knot of unease, tightening with every passing moment. Something was brewing beneath that polished, charming surface, and I was determined to find it. I waited until the chaos of the celebration died down, until I was alone in the quiet, with only the dim glow of the chandelier above me. Her phone sat on the table, notifications blinking innocently, silently daring me to look, and I did. The first message I saw hit me like a jagged knife. It was playful, casual, but underneath it, venom and betrayal. I could feel my pulse quicken as I scrolled. Each message was worse than the last. Secrets, lies, flattery disguised as intimacy, a life I had no part of, but was entwined with mine all the same. I read aloud to myself, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. I can't wait until he finds out. I'll never see it coming. My hands shook as I pieced together a story I never wanted to hear, every line a testament to deceit. It was the kind of betrayal that goes beyond infidelity, was a deliberate, planned manipulation. My world tilted. How could someone I had trusted with my heart, my life, my very being, do this? The anger that had simmered during the introduction now burned like molten steel. And yet amid the shock, something else began to grow, a clarity, a sharpness that cut through the fog of betrayal. I realized I had more than just evidence now. I had power. Power not fueled by revenge yet, but by knowledge. The humiliation, the laughter, the whispers, they were all temporary. Truth, I understood, has a weight that eventually topples even the strongest facades. I closed the phone, letting the silence wrap around me. The betrayal was real. The plan was hers. But I wasn't broken. Not yet. And when the moment came to reveal the truth, it wouldn't be out of spite. It would be the final act of justice, served cold, precise, and unavoidable. Karma, I knew, had a rhythm, and I was beginning to feel its pulse. By that night on, every glance, every gesture, every subtle hint became a clue. I was no longer just a victim, I was a man awakening, ready to turn betrayal into revelation. I couldn't hold it in any longer. The lies, the whispers, the subtle, calculated humiliation, it all came rushing up like a tidal wave, crashing through the carefully built walls of patience I had been trying to maintain. I found her alone. In the study, the dim light casting sharp shadows across the room, her phone lay carelessly on the table, almost taunting me, and that half-smile she always hid, it was gone. Now only fear flickered in her eyes. I stepped closer, voice low but trembling. Leora, what is this? Who are you really? The calm I had clung to shattered. Every word that left my lips carried the weight of betrayal. Every syllable laced with a mix of hurt, anger, and disbelief. She tried to brush it off, laughed nervously, but it was too late. My mind had seen too much, my heart had felt too much, and my soul refused to be fooled any longer. The first scream tore from my throat before I even realized it. Not the shrill cry of hysteria, but the roar of a man who had been humiliated, mocked, and betrayed by the person he loved most. She flinched, her body tensing, but I didn't stop. Questions poured out, sharp and relentless. Why introduce me as the wrong husband? Why those messages, the lies, the games? Did I mean nothing to you? My voice echoed through the room, bouncing off walls that had witnessed our happiest moments and now bore witness to our destruction. Her words stumbled over each other, excuses, deflections, even the faintest attempt at blame, but they couldn't mask the truth. I could see it in her eyes, the guilt she tried so desperately to hide. Anger surged through me, not just at her betrayal, but at the audacity of it, at the way she had tried to humiliate me in front of everyone, the way she had twisted intimacy into manipulation. My hands shook, not with fear, but with the raw intensity of emotions I had bottled up for too long. Then came the moment of silence, heavy and suffocating, where neither of us spoke, but everything between us screamed. My chest heaved, my heart pounded, but amid the chaos, clarity emerged. This confrontation wasn't about punishment, it was about acknowledgement. She had to see me, really see me, stripped of the humiliation she had imposed. She had to face the storm she had created, and I would not flinch. I walked out of the room then, letting the anger settle into a quiet, controlled resolve. The confrontation had changed something inside me. The betrayal had stung, yes, but now it was a fuel, precise and burning. Karma was no longer distant, it was within reach. And when it came, she would understand that the man she tried to humiliate had only been waiting for the right moment to turn the tables. After the confrontation, the storm inside me didn't commit, sharpened. Anger had done its work, and now it was time for strategy. Revenge isn't about shouting or slamming doors. It's about precision. It's about letting the other person's actions unravel in a way that leaves no room for doubt, no space for excuses. And Leora had given me every tool I needed. Every secret message, every whispered lie, every carefully hidden betrayal lit was all there, waiting to be revealed. I spent hours going over every conversation, every subtle hint, piecing together a timeline of deception so clear it could not be denied. I read and reread her messages, not out of malice alone, but out of necessity. Every word became a weapon. Every detail, a thread I could pull until the entire facade came tumbling down. It was meticulous, almost surgical work, and with each step, I felt the weight of control returning to me. For the first time since that night, I wasn't humiliated. I was empowered. The plan wasn't about public shaming. No, it was about truth, served cold and undeniable. I arranged the gathering, the right people in the right places, each one unsuspecting, each one witnessing a reality they hadn't known existed. I practiced what I would say, how I would say it, letting emotion ride the edges without overtaking the control I needed. I wasn't angry in front of them. I was composed, precise, the calm before the revelation. And the anticipation, the quiet, tense energy in my chest hit was intoxicating. As I prepared, I reminded myself of the principle that had guided me through this nightmare. Karma isn't instant. It doesn't announce itself. It waits, it observes, it accumulates power quietly until the moment is perfect. And when that moment comes, the impact is undeniable. Leora had underestimated that. She had assumed I would break, that I would crumble beneath her games. But patience had become my ally, strategy my weapon. The betrayal that had burned so brightly inside me was now forging clarity and resolve, giving me the strength to act with precision rather than blind rage. By the end of the day, I was ready. The storm that had begun with her humiliation had transformed into something else, a quiet, unstoppable force. And I knew when the time came that every whisper, every secret, every lie she had ever whispered into the shadows would finally meet the light. The truth would speak, and she would have no choice but to hear it. Karma wasn't just coming, it had already arrived, waiting for her to open the door. The moment arrived with a quiet tension, a weight that pressed against my chest and sharpened my focus. Leora was there, radiant and unsuspecting, unaware that the very walls around her would soon echo the truth she had tried so desperately to hide. I could feel every heartbeat, every subtle tremor in my hands, but it wasn't fear, it was anticipation. This wasn't about anger anymore. This was about justice, about letting the reality she had twisted speak for itself. I began to read, my voice steady, each word deliberate, each pause calculated for maximum impact. I read her messages aloud, letting the words hang in the air like daggers. I can't wait until he finds out. He'll never see it coming, one whispered, casual but loaded with deceit. The room grew still, the soft murmur of conversation dying into stunned silence. I could sense the shift, the collective intake of breath, the invisible thread snapping between illusion and truth. Her face, usually so composed, betrayed panic now. She tried to mask it, to laugh it off, to brush it as nonsense, but the evidence was undeniable. Every guest leaned in, their curiosity overtaking politeness. Their eyes flicking between her and me, piecing together a puzzle she had assumed only she could control. And I, for the first time in months, felt the sweet, sharp satisfaction of clarity. I wasn't attacking high, was merely showing the reality she had created herself. As I continued, the whispers grew louder, her excuses crumbling with each read message. I could hear her inhale sharply, her composure slipping, her facade breaking under the weight of the truth. It was exquisite in its inevitability. She had spent so long orchestrating a life of deception, and now it was all unraveling with a precision only patience and observation could achieve. Every lie, every secret, every betrayal was exposed, leaving her vulnerable, powerless, and for the first time, truly human. When I finished, I let silence settle, letting the room digest what had just unfolded. Leora's eyes met mine briefly, not with defiance, not with charm, but with regret, a silent acknowledgement of the storm she had invited upon herself. And in that moment, I realized that revenge wasn't about humiliation, it was about truth. It was about balance. Karma, as I had promised myself, had found its mark. Walking away, I felt lighter than I had in months. The anger that had fueled me had transformed into something more powerful: liberation. The betrayal that had once threatened to consume me had become my tool, my clarity, my moment of justice. And as I left the room, I knew this was not the end. It was the awakening of a man who had been tested, humiliated, and emerged untouchable. After the storm of exposure, a quiet settled over everything. The tension, the whispers, the suffocating weight of deceit, it all began to dissipate, leaving behind a space I hadn't felt in months: clarity. I stood there for a moment, letting the silence wrap around me, the echoes of betrayal fading into the background. Leora's presence no longer carried the power it once had. Her regret was palpable, sharp and undeniable, but it no longer affected me. I had reclaimed something far more important than pride. I had reclaimed myself. I thought back to the first moments of humiliation, to the sharp sting of being introduced as the wrong husband. That pain had seemed unbearable, but in hindsight it had been necessary. It had stripped me bare, forced me to see everything I had ignored, and sharpened my instincts, my mind, my resolve. Betrayal had been a brutal teacher, but it had also been the catalyst for transformation. I realized that true strength doesn't come from avoiding pain, it comes from standing through it, learning from it, and rising above it. As I walked through the now empty hall, I felt the weight lift further. Every step was deliberate, calm, purposeful. I wasn't running from the past, I was stepping into the future, one I chose, not one dictated by the lies of others. And with that choice came freedom. The anger that had once consumed me had evolved into something more potent: peace and clarity. I understood, in a way I never had before, that revenge isn't just about punishing someone else, it's about reclaiming control over your own life, your own emotions, your own story. Leora's regret lingered in the room, but it no longer had power over me. I had seen the truth, held it, and let it unfold naturally without haste or malice. The world had witnessed what she tried to hide, and just as quiet, precise, Inevitable justice had been served. I didn't need to shout, to rage, or to seek vengeance beyond that moment. Karma had done its work, and I had only been its careful messenger. As I stepped out into the evening air, cool and crisp, I felt a lightness I hadn't known in months. The horizon stretched before me, vast and uncharted, full of possibilities I was finally free to pursue. I smiled not because the betrayal was gone, not because the pain had vanished, but because I had survived it, learned from it, and emerged stronger than I ever imagined. Some truths can't be hidden. Some betrayals can't remain buried. And sometimes, the best revenge is simply living, thriving, and walking away with your head held high. That night, I learned that karma isn't just a word, it's a force. It's patient, inevitable, and profoundly satisfying when allowed to unfold naturally.